everybody. Welcome to the Random Redshirt podcast. I am one of the hosts, Zach, and the other host is Chris. What's up, buddy?
Hello, Zach. Great to be here. Hello, everyone around the worlds and the interwebs and all of the 7 continents and maybe Antarctica. Hopefully, Antarctica, if someone's listening there. My wife is teasing me because I always ask to see if Antarctica is perhaps one of our listeners, because I think that would be like awesome if that continent was there. And, I feel like she doesn't think it may someday be true, but if one day it becomes true and we get a listener from Antarctica, that would be amazing.
Penguins.
Now, that could happen, but I think we have a better chance of somebody on the ISS listening than somebody in Antarctica. But we'll hold out hopes for both.
Yeah, indeed. How have you been doing? Yeah.
Yes.
Great,
So I've been okay. I've been all right. But yeah, we're. How about you?
Been doing good. We finally made it to the weekend.
Yeah.
So plenty of work, travel. And thank goodness we've been able to make it to the weekend, be able to share our time together, talk about some Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica and the other kind of cool stuff, and get ready for Halloween and start talking about like what we should be watching for Halloween. Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. Yeah, I'm getting over strep throat, unfortunately. Both my kids have it and I have it, and it's been awesome. So if I sound a little bit nasally on this, I apologize. I have been getting over being sick, which is always exciting. But yes, I am also excited too, Chris, that we get a chance to come together, talk about things we love and enjoy. We've been talking about some Battlestar Galactica, some Star Trek. And on this particular episode, as you may have been aware by the title, we are wrapping up the legacy Star Trek Mirror Universe. We've been doing this for a little while. It's been a blast. We started all the way back with the original series, Mirror Mirror, the very first episode that kicked this whole thing off. And we've gone through, what do we go through? 5 or 6 episodes of DS9's Mirror Universe, which really, DS9 really enhanced the Mirror Universe from what it was, which was just a single episode in the original series.
Yeah, DS9, flushed it out a bit, gave some background on what was happening amongst the Terran Empire and the Alliance, and it was all pretty cool to watch. This episode, I really enjoyed it too. This Enterprise 2-parter.
Yeah, this was great. I really think they kind of went all out on this. This episode, In a Mirror Darkly Part 1 and 2, which is what we're here to talk about. It really goes into a lot of really awesome things. They did a great job of I don't want to say going to the extreme, but really just going all out. I think making the episode fun to watch, and with a little bit of a different twist to the Mirror Universe than we've seen in previous episodes. So this will be fun to jump into. We will jump into that in just a minute. But of course, if this is your first time watching or listening, thank you for joining us. We very much appreciate it. We're a couple of nerdy guys who like talk about all things nerdy and geeky, Star Trek to Star Wars and everything in between. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram for our social media pages, as well as YouTube. If you're listening to this, you can find the video version of this and many others on our YouTube channel. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you can find all of our episodes, to include the ones that were not recorded with video, anywhere you get your podcasts. So with that being said, yeah, we're going to be doing our Halloween episode at the time of this recording, our Halloween episode coming up pretty soon. And we'll get that out to you guys here before the end of the month to get you paired on what we think is something watching from a science fiction related standpoint prior to Halloween or on Halloween night once the trick-or-treaters have left, if you are a U.S. resident. Because I know every country goes through the whole trick-or-treating and Halloween type stuff like we do here.
Yeah, I need to get set up and get some trick-or-treat candy, maybe some more Halloween decorations. So I got to do all of that in the works. So it'll be a little bit of preparation for that, but that'll be fun. That'll be fun.
I think what would be cool, I mean, now we're talking about Halloween, right? What would be cool to dress up for at a Star Trek convention, and I've seen this done before, so this is not something that's like original. Like I came up
Mhm.
with this because I didn't, but is dressed since we're the Random Redshirt podcast, dressing up as zombie versions of ourselves, wearing a tattered, torn up Random Redshirt podcast T-shirt, and we'll be zombie hosts. That'd be kind of fun.
My goodness. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sorry to go on a tangent here, like but since it is Halloween season, right? And then they've got various cities have their different Halloween activities. And so one activity up here was, I think, a ghost walk on a trail, or ghost trail walk, some walk for a family. Um so our kids, I became interested in, like, hey, sounds good. And so I heard that and I said, well, all right, now could be like ghosts, zombies, or vampires that come and attack you on the ghost walk. So, are you clear on how to dispatch zombies first? And then do you know how to do that? Right. And then do you know how to defend yourself? And are you clear on how to dispatch vampires? So we went through the checklist of, like, the vampires, we had to do the stake through the heart, maybe some holy water, maybe some sunlight right there. And the zombies, you gotta detach the head from the zombie body, make sure
Yeah,
that that's there. So they got to go through the
yeah.
checklist on how to defend from zombies and vampires.
That's good. That's good. That's much needed end of the world type stuff there, On
Yeah.
the now, I will say if I went on a ghost walk or ghost trail, whatever, I'm bringing my unlicensed nuclear accelerator with me.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I mean, if you're gonna go against ghosts, you better have something to bust them with. I mean,
Yeah,
busting does make me feel good, so I'm just gonna put that out there.
there you go.
Yeah, so we look forward to bringing you our updated version. We did do this once before a couple years ago on the podcast. It was an audio only where we talked, I believe, where we talked about our favorite episodes and movies and stuff that were sci-fi related, that were good spooky Halloween type episodes and movies to watch for this time of year. So we'll be getting that out to you guys here in a couple of weeks. And then hopefully we'll be bringing you guys some fantastic content from the Battlestar Galactica 20th anniversary convention in Chicago, coming at the end of this month as the time of this recording in October 2024. We will hopefully be able to do some stuff from the convention, maybe even talk a little bit before the convention about it, and then some post-convention reviews and discussions and everything like that. Should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to talking that up and having a good time.
It'll be a great time. It'll definitely be a
Yeah.
great time. So,
But
yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, no, I was going to talk about, In a Mirror Darkly, but go
Oh,
ahead.
okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna say
Yeah.
we're gonna jump into this, Chris. So let's take it away. Let's get going on this episode here, this two-parter, which there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
And the really cool thing about this episode is that it starts out with the scene from Star Trek First Contact, right?
That was
The
totally
actual
cool.
scene with some of
Yeah.
the music and really get this cool kind of feeling like, oh man, like we're gonna see like the Vulcans and First Contact again and all this cool stuff. April 5th, 2063. We're getting closer. I mean, imagine, right? So it's 2024, right? And so we are what, 30, what's that, 39 years of my public math serves me correctly. So in 39 years, Chris, or little less than 39 years, like, are you and I going to still be doing this podcast and we'll be talking about the actual day of First Contact is here?
Yeah, we probably will. We're going to be in Bozeman, Montana. We'll probably be there. We'll be able to,
In our
like,
walk with our walkers and our wheelchairs as we
yeah,
like we're old and decrepit.
yeah, yeah. And we'll be, like, looking around like, hey, they should be, like, arriving like any minute, the Vulcans. And yes.
Everybody else will be like, what the
Yeah.
heck are you talking about?
And we'll, like, we'll be like, well, don't you guys know?
Yeah.
This is
I wonder if there actually will be Trekkies that show up to Bozeman, Montana on April 5th, 2063 as a way to celebrate First Contact.
what,
There's going to be, right? I mean, if Star Trek's gone on this long, what's another 38 years and some change, right?
are we able to make hotel reservations that far in advance? Perhaps, like, you could do that with the Hilton.
I'm gonna say no, but because I'm thinking the credit card you're gonna have on file might be expired by the time they actually go to
Yeah.
use it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we'll find somebody who'll hook us up. So when we're, God, 38 years from now, what am I gonna? I'm gonna be almost 80. Oh gosh, that's hard to think about, Chris.
We get
You'll be
younger.
in your
You
80s.
know, we yeah, we get younger. The kids get older. We get younger. That's how it works.
Is that how it
That's
works?
how it
I'm
works.
I'm
That's how it
I'm still
works.
waiting for that to happen. I'm sorry. I'm
Uh,
still waiting for that to happen.
you saw
But yes,
Benjamin Button, right? That he gets younger, so that's what's gonna happen to us.
yeah, but my first name's not Benjamin. My last name's not Button, so I'm in trouble. Oh, but anyways, yes. So April 5th, 2063, this episode starts from the Earth's atmosphere as
Yeah.
the Vulcan ship lowers down into Bozeman, Montana.
So I feel the same as you. I felt they really went all out on this episode. I
Yeah.
felt it was action packed, it was cinematic. I really really like this. And so like you know if you I'm recollecting when I first because I rewatched this, right? So when I first watched this episode, like it's you know, right? It starts off, it's like first contact day. You see the Vulcans coming down, you see Zephyr and Cochrane right there. It's really cool. The Vulcans come out and they're doing the Vulcan salute, and every you get this like really uplifting, surreal music, and you've got Zephyr and Cochrane right there, and he puts up his hand. He tries to
Tries
do
to
the
do the
Vulcan
salute.
salute,
Yep.
does not work, and then he pulls out his shotgun and he shoots everyone, and he says, "Everyone, all right, everyone, let's go take whatever they got in the ship." And so that was really dramatic, and I remember my reaction at the time going, "Oh my gosh, like what is happening here?" And then you start the credit scene, and I loved the credit scene, right? There's a different credit
Yes.
scene. Yeah, yeah.
So I had forgotten that the entire not entire that's not even a word, my lord. The entire opening credits is completely different. Music, the visuals, everything it lends itself to war and
Mhm.
nuclear bombs and tanks and the complete opposite of the normal Enterprise, which is exploration and humanities first and all that stuff. I had forgotten about the opening crawl and it was fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine. They must have loved making these episodes. I imagine that did. So the opening crawl, opening credits was great. And then we're on the ISS Enterprise, and I believe it's Admiral um Admiral Black that's actually in control of the ISS Enterprise. You know,
No,
not
Admiral
who it's
Forrest. Admiral Forrest.
Ah, yes, thank you, Admiral
Admiral
Forrest. That's
Forrest.
right.
But in this case, he's not an admiral, he's a captain, right? And his
Yeah.
first officer is Jonathan Archer.
Yeah, that's right. And you get a sneak peek at of the agony booth. They're actually
Yep.
using the agony booth on a Tellurite, and you don't expect that, right? Because the Tellurites are founding species of the Federation, but here, like,
Yes.
nope, they are in the agony booth because it's all about the Terran Empire here. So you get to watch Dr. Phlox is kind of enjoying that agony booth there.
Yeah.
And you do see First Officer Jonathan Archer, and it's cool to see like Captain Forrest there, and you get some interaction in there. You learn that there's a conflict, there's a war happening, and you know that Archer's got this idea. He's made a proposal to Captain Forrest, and he's saying, "Hey, have you looked at my proposal? Like, what do you think?" Because he wants to go into Tholian space to try and get some more technology that he's heard of that's going to help the Terrans win the war against the
Yep.
rebels. So essentially, and you know, Captain Forrest is like, nah, kind of meh on the proposal. Like, nah, it's not going to really hear it. And that really gives us an insight, like, into Archer, because Archer is really hungry for recognition and really hungry for the Terrans to win. And um, Archer says some interesting things there, like he challenges Forrest's authority,
Yeah.
kind of bluntly. And Forrest says, "Hey, you can either follow my orders or you can take the place of that Tellurite in the agony chamber." So
Yeah.
pretty cool opening with those two.
Yeah, and right away we see big differences, right? In not only the characters, but the roles of the characters on the ship, right?
Hmm.
Of course, Captain Forrest was Admiral Forrest in the Prime Universe. Archer is the first officer versus the captain. You see Malcolm Reed, who is a Mako, right? He's a soldier. He's not a Starfleet officer. I believe in this opening couple scenes, we also see Travis Mayweather, who's also a Mako. He is
Hmm.
not a Starfleet officer, and I believe he's a sergeant as well. So he's an enlisted Mako. He is not a lieutenant or not an ensign, excuse me, in Starfleet. So right away, we're seeing things different. We see a Dr. Phlox who's almost like an evil mad scientist doctor, right?
Hmm.
He is absolutely loving the agony chamber. He is taking great joy in it. He's wearing, all black kind of, scientist doctory get up stuff. And right away we see things just like we have in the other Mirror Universe episodes from the other series. Things are vastly different. Characters are playing different roles, and they are much different than their Prime Universe counterparts.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see. We see like Hoshi. Hoshi is kind of the consort of Captain Forrest, and so she's got an interesting like arc through the show, but
Yeah.
that's kind of her role in here. And Archer is so um it's interesting. He's so thinking that he's right, like everyone else is wrong. He's driven like so much to start a mutiny
Yeah.
against the Captain Forrest. Oh,
Really quickly. I mean,
yeah,
we're not even. Are we even 5 minutes into this episode when the mutiny starts? I don't think so.
I think jumps right into the mutiny. Then they take
Yeah.
over, and Forrest is like, "Hey, you're gonna hang for this, and what are you doing?" But he's able to they get through the mutiny and take control of the ship. I'd say pretty quickly after that.
Yeah.
You reminds me you talked about the Makos. Did you see the Mako patch had like a skull on it? It
Yeah.
was kind of
It's
cool,
much
and
different.
yeah, totally, like much different.
Same thing
Um,
with the Terran Empire, patch they're wearing, right? You see this throughout the mirror episodes, right? With the Earth, and you
yeah,
have like the sword going through it. If you're watching us or listening to us on YouTube, if you go back, there's kind of like a little Easter egg that some of you may have noticed, some of you may have not. But if you go back and look at all the episodes we've done Mirror Universe reviews of, you will find our random Redshirt podcast logo on just those specific episodes on the thumbnail on YouTube is actually been replaced inside the Delta Shield of our logo with the Terran Empire symbol. So if you didn't notice that, go back and take a look and you will see, including this one, the thumbnail on YouTube is different every time we've done a Mirror Universe episode. It is the Terran Empire. So that is the same symbol
that's
you
right.
will see on the uniforms as well as like on the doors and other things throughout the episode.
Yeah, that's a cool Easter egg. Cool Easter egg.
I like Easter eggs. It's fun.
Yeah,
Well, I think a lot of people do, right? We like seeing little tidbits here and there, and so I thought it was kind of fun to like to get to the to get rid of the microphone that's inside of our Delta Shield on our podcast logo, right, and replace it with
mhm,
the Terran Empire symbol. I was like, yeah, it'd be kind of fun.
yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So uh, Archer promotes to Paul to first officer, and they kind of have an exchange, and um, Archer um is kind of seeing if T'Pol's kind of going to accept his command, and T'Pol pretty much says, "Well, you are in command." But we learn later, like T'Pol kind of tries to take back over the ship with Captain Forrest, and Archer also promotes Mayweather to his personal guard,
Yeah.
which is interesting, right? Because in the Terran Empire, yeah, the captain always has to have a personal guard because everyone wants to assassinate the captain.
Right. Well, but because that's how
Yeah,
you advance in the Terran Empire, right? In the Mirror Universe, how they
totally.
advance on these ships is they kill people, which is very interesting because in the Prime Universe, Klingons kind of do that a little bit too, right? They kind of play that kind of game. The political bureaucratic game on the Klingon on board Klingon ships is kind of similar, right?
Yeah,
Where the first officer or somebody in high up on in command of a ship, if they think that the captain's gone way off his rocker, they might kill the captain and take over.
Yeah.
So some kind of similarities there across to the Prime universe.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So on the way to Tholian space, they encounter a Tholian ship. Right? I think they pursue the Tholian ship. Uh, they're able to beam the pilot of the Tholian ship on before the Tholian ship like explodes, and they're in like it's kind of interesting to see. Well, it is interesting to see how they treat the Tholian like prisoner. And they're essentially like,
Yeah.
yeah, torturing the Tholian prisoner to give like information, which they eventually do get from him.
Yeah, and I want to just really quickly, Chris, go back for a second. The conversation that Archer has with T'Pol in the captain's quarters, because they weren't his quarters, the ready room, not the quarters, the ready room, is very interesting because in this, Archer reminds T'Pol that the Vulcans were basically slaves to the humans, and he's like, if Cochrane hadn't pulled that gun and shot, the Vulcans as part of their invasion force, this like real xenophobic type of a view in this mirror universe of Vulcans, then you guys might have enslaved us. But don't forget, that you're a Vulcan, and don't forget who you are, and blah blah. Basically asserting his authority over her as a human, because in this universe, Vulcans are looked at as, I guess, inferior. They're looked at as slaves or whatever. And I thought that was very interesting. I'd forgotten that little tidbit in this episode and the way in which Vulcans are looked at in the mirror universe, because you don't
Yeah.
see that. You don't see that in Mirror and Toss. Like Spock, I don't ever remember Spock being considered like a slave or anything like that. So maybe that changed over the course of time between Archer's time period to Kirk and Spock time period, the mirror universe. But in this, he's
Mm-hmm.
talking about how the way in which Vulcans are, were enslaved by humans.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And T'Pol says, "I am not a slave." Right? And T'Pol's,
Yeah.
uh, it's interesting. How she um, is played in this episode. It's almost like she has a bit more compassion, I would say. She's not like she's stoic, but like not as stoic, right? She's got a little bit
Yeah.
of like compassion throughout this episode, and I liked that.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, she shows a little little belly there, and the uniforms that they wear in this for the females are kind of shorty short, which I know was intentionally done, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um, but it's interesting too, because there's also a moment where I think she asks him, why he didn't pick. I think it's Major Reed, because I think he's a major with the
Mm-hmm.
Makos, right? And he says something effective like, "Oh, Reed doesn't like to follow orders very well, does he?" or something like that. So
Yeah.
he wants somebody who's going to be loyal and follow orders, and he's looking down onto Paul because she's a Vulcan, and therefore believes because they're inferior, Vulcans are inferior to humans, he should have an easy time being able to keep her in line.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Um, yeah, which proves out to be, not so true because
No,
yeah,
no,
she's actually helping to get the ship back. So,
right.
so maybe that was a first mistake of command from this version of Captain First Officer Archer. Who knows?
Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
little overconfident, I think, right? A little cocky, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, and we find out later he's kind of crazy. Dude.
You think?
Yeah. Yeah. But like in the decon chamber or the torture chamber, I guess it is the decon chamber, but they're using the decon chamber to torture the Tholian. They gather outside that chamber. They want to know where the Tholians have taken the so-called Terran vessel that the Tholians captured, which we see later on the show. So they're wanting to know how to get there. They eventually get the information, but they kind of, I think they freeze, right? They freeze the Tholian, like that's how they do it. They lower the
Yeah.
temperature. Yeah.
because Tholians live in a very, very hot temperature, like really super hot. And
Oh yeah.
so you see that when they first beam the Tholian over. And we
Hmm.
learn that I throughout Star Trek. I don't remember if it's in the Prime universe or not, but yeah, Tholians are very, very hot climate, excuse me, species. And so yeah, like you said, they're freezing them to death.
Throughout Star Trek, I'm trying to recall, we haven't seen or done much with the Tholians throughout all of the episodes. I
Yeah,
don't
not too much.
recollect that. Yeah.
Yeah, they were in the original series, obviously, but we first see them in Enterprise. I want to say we also see the Tholians in Strange New Worlds, I think. I want to say they brought the
Mm,
Tholians into Strange New Worlds, which would
okay.
make sense given the time period. I've always been
Yeah.
very fascinated by the Tholians. They make the Tholian web, which is great episode. And their ships and their technology, and they're very reclusive, and you don't hear a lot about them. I would like to actually see more of the Tholians brought into Star Trek, because I think they'd be a really great species to introduce as either some type of bad guy character arc, or a recurring species that would you know be something in I don't know, something in an episode or whatever. But
I agree. That's ripe open like space that they can explore with the Tholians.
yeah, it would be cool to whether there was
Mm.
an episode where they go to the Tholian homeworld, or maybe I don't know. I have to think through like some ideas, but in general, I think it'd be a great species to bring into Star Trek a little bit more.
Yeah. So they want to install a Tholian cloaking device, I believe, on the Enterprise now. So
No, Suliban cloaking device. Yeah,
Suliban. Oh,
it's a
thank you.
Suliban
Suliban.
one. Yeah, yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And so Archer, yeah, Archer instructs Tucker and T'Pol to do that.
So I think they
To
steal it. I'm pretty sure they steal it, right?
Yeah. They they stole it somehow. I don't know
Yeah,
that that was in this episode, but somehow they had gotten the cloaking device.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, somehow they got it. I would assume that they stole it. I mean, given the fact we're in the mirror universe and we have psychotic versions of the characters, I would imagine it was stolen or something.
Yeah, so they try to install it. I don't actually think that they're successful in doing it because I think
Not
there's
initially.
some
Yeah,
yeah,
not
there I think
initially.
some shocks. Um and Archer's like wondering who sabotaged the install of the cloaking device there.
Yep.
Yeah, and then Archer Archer's thinking that Forrest knows like who the saboteur is, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He thinks there's a spy aboard that another admiral put on the ship, and Captain Forrest is like, why would he put a spy on my ship and then tell me who the spy is?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like an inside job kind of person, which makes sense, right? I mean, Archer in this is not exactly the greatest command, because I think he's so thirsty for power, he's not really considering these types of things. I think he's just doing without
Yeah.
thinking, right?
Yeah,
And
that's right.
he's on his own mission.
He is. He is so thirsty for power. And it's Reed, it's Reed that says to Archer that he thinks all the evidence points to Tucker as being the saboteur. All right. And
Which
then
is funny because they become friends,
ah,
right, in the Prime universe, and yet they're like butting heads, and of course we see you know Trip with the eye, right, the damage on the side of his face, and his eyes all caved over or whatever, and the scarring and all that stuff. And yeah, it's really fascinating. I think they highlight in this mirror universe episode so well the amount of suspicion and lack of trust that any humans have for each other. Like, you would
mhm.
think, right, that they fend off the Vulcan invasion in their words, and they come together and they do this warp and all this stuff, and they're going out and they're conquering and stuff. Wouldn't you think that they would be all on the same side and they just be going against the other aliens. And I mean, in the mirror universe, humans are kind of, at least right now in this particular period of time, humans are a little bit xenophobic, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
right? They just want the power. They want to control the quadrant. And so they have no problem enslaving aliens and torturing aliens and everything else, but they spend so much time going after each other. It's like, why don't you use that energy on something like to further the empire, right? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. No, I completely agree that they depict well that there is no trust like amongst
No,
the Terrans in there in Starfleet.
no, not at all. I mean, I guess they're not fully xenophobic, right? I mean, they have Dr. Phlox on board. He's obviously an alien species, and they have
Mm-hmm.
other aliens on board and stuff like that. I wouldn't say they're fully xenophobic, but xenophobic in the sense that they want power and control.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So they subject Tucker to the agony booth like over and over and over again, despite Tucker like indicating, "Hey, I'm innocent," and
Yeah.
so that's too bad. And Hoshi, um, Hoshi was Captain Forrest's consort. Then she later becomes Captain Archer's consort. So very much an
Yeah.
opportunist, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say the same thing. I was like, yeah, I think she's playing her cards right. And I'll be on. I'll just say it right now. I think Hoshi's my favorite character in this two-part mirror universe because she's, if you're looking at it in the lens of the mirror universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
She is deceitful. She is manipulative. She's everything you want in a leader in this mirror universe, right? And she plots and she schemes and she goes for everything and she's literally using her physical body to get what she wants in order to get where she wants to go, which we'll
Mm-hmm.
talk about at the end of part two. But I think she is such a complete 180 from the regular Hoshi. And the way she portrays her is she's just fantastic.
She did a great job. I also feel, yeah, I feel similarly to that. So T'Pol leads I guess you could call it a rescue effort or a recapture effort of the
Yeah.
ship. She does that, and they are able to get the ship back. She's able to get Captain Forrest like out of the brig, and then he's back in command. And they end up trying to change the course of the ship, but realize that they cannot. It's been locked on course to the coordinates of that Tholian space where the Terran
Yep.
captured Terran ship is supposed to be. So yeah, and they bring in, I think they bring in Archer to the bridge, um, and Archer's kind of smug and saying, "Well, I've locked it in, and um, and we're going to Tholian space essentially." And then they have Archer in the agony booth after that, I believe.
Yeah, for like 10 hours, right?
Yeah,
And then Flux makes a comment where he's like, he's been in there 10 hours. This has been wonderful, or something like that. I don't remember the exact words, right? But he's astonished that Archer has lasted this long. He's like, yeah, he can't believe he's lasted this 10 hours, but he's that's how long he's been in there.
maybe that makes him go even more crazy in
That
there.
could be
Yeah.
because you think about it, right? I mean, this thing is just it's called agony for a reason, right?
Hmm.
It's driving you crazy. And so, yeah, you're probably right. It probably does make Archer go a little bit more insane, having been in that. I mean, this is something that you would think they would throw somebody in there for, you know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe an hour, to get answers out of people. If it's really that bad, they're going to talk pretty quickly. But 10
Yeah.
hours, and you hear the noises and everything going on in there, 10 hours, that's a long time. Yeah, that could drive a crazy person nuts.
Yeah.
And it does
Yeah.
because Archer's crazy. So
Yeah, absolutely. And Archer eventually gets released from the agony booth because what we find out is that the fleet admiral from the Terran Empire from Starfleet, Fleet Admiral Gardner,
yep.
received the data that Archer sent from Hoshi and was kind of intrigued and interested in, hey, what is this? This captured Terran vessel. So at least they're interested and ordered his release. So that gets Archer out of the agony booth, and therefore, like Forrest can't quite, dispatch of Archer quite yet. and they continue like going towards the Tholian space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you think it was cool like when they neared Tholian space and kind of zoomed in on the asteroid and zoomed in and zoomed in and zoomed in, and then you saw that it was the Constitution class starship that was in there? I thought it was really awesome.
It is it is a great homage to the original series. The really the
Mm-hmm.
second half of this two-part episode is a great homage to TOS, right? Excuse me. And the uh the catching up of the timeline a little bit from Archer's time into the original series. And I do find it fascinating. We talked about how they kind of pulled out all the stops, right? For this episode, they really went in, 120%, went in head first into the deep end to make this episode what it was. And I think part of that reason is because you think about this episode is really late in season 4, in the last season of Enterprise. I think it's like episode 18 or something like that, episode
Mm-hmm.
18, 19 or whatever. So they're right towards the end of season 4 and the end of the show. So I think maybe that plays a role into why we see what we see, the recreation of the original series bridge again, bringing kind of all that in the uniforms and you see Archer wearing the famous green tunic that Kirk wears. They call it the wraparound or something like that. Um, they pull out all the stops, and it's really a great TOS um, homage in this, and I think it's fantastic. I really love what they did, the mingling of Enterprise with TOS.
Yeah, I agree. They did a fantastic job. They did a fantastic job. So it's T'Pol, when they explain it, I believe T'Pol explains that, hey, the Vulcan Science Directorate kind of discovered that there is an alternate reality, an alternate universe, and this is new for them. They're like, what? What do you mean there's an alternate universe? But that's how they kind of explain the Terran ship being there, that the Terran ship is not only from an alternate universe, but it's also like 100 years in the future. So that's why, well, that's why it's a Constitution class starship.
Yeah, we learned that the Atholians actually lured the ship over,
Hmm.
right? And so then
Yeah.
they were able to take control of it. I would imagine because the Tholians are probably looking at the ship like, okay, future technology, what can we use from this to help us fend off the Terran Empire, right? You got to think in this period of time, in this alternate universe, this mirror universe, that the other alien races and species that live in and around the Alpha Quadrant near the Terran Empire, in quotes, they're probably trying to figure out every which way they can to get a leg up on the Terran Empire to keep themselves from being conquered.
Hmm. Hmm.
So to me, it would make sense for them to have discovered this, go over there, lure in a future ship in the hopes that future technology will help them gain a foothold on protecting their space and protection against the Terran Empire.
Yeah. Yeah. So we get a little bit more like insight on Tucker and um when Reed said, "Hey, all the evidence points to Tucker being the saboteur," we get a little bit more background on like what actually happened there. And we find out that it was T'Pol that actually did a mind meld with Tucker to sabotage the cloaking device, and then did another mind meld after to make him forget. And how she did that was, trying to entice Tucker to like a romantic encounter with her.
She
So
lured him with sex, yes.
that's right.
That's what she did, Chris. I mean, she was like, "Yeah, come on in. Like, let's have some fun." And he was like, "All right, sounds good." Which
Yeah.
is which is funny because even in the mirror universe, Trip is attracted to Paul.
Hmm.
So we've talked about this before. We've talked about what would, if it were us or if in our lives in different universes, what would things look like? How would things be? Would we still be attracted to or would things be so different that we would not actually have interest in our spouses or interest in our friends or what,
Mhm.
all those things. And you see in Star Trek where it's like some things maybe transcend universes, right? Things transcend space and time. And it's
Yeah.
just the way things are. So I think this is one of those instances.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Agree. Um, did you? I thought it was cool that the name of the ship was the Defiant,
Yeah.
and I was thinking about that. I can't remember if there was any particular reason why the name of this ship was the Defiant, or if there was any tie-in to Toss on why it was the Defiant. But the reason I thought it was neat was, hey, this ship's named the Defiant, and Tucker's idea was he wanted to take this ship and bring it to the front lines of the conflict they were in because he thought that this ship was going to be able to help them win the war. And I was just connecting that with DS9 and um and the reason that Starfleet like crafted the Defiant class ships was so that they could use those ships to go in and win the war against the Borg, and use the Defiant, of course, to to help them against their war against the Dominion. So for me, that's what I
Yeah.
was thinking about.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember the USS Defiant ever appearing in TOS,
Hmm.
the actual show. I know there was like the USS Constitution, right? Which is, I believe, part of the Doomsday Machine episode where it's all
Hmm.
beat to hell. Um, but I don't remember the Defiant, there being a USS Defiant appear in TOS. I think this was something that was added in to canon by Enterprise's In a Mirror Darkly Part 1 and 2. So, that being said, it was the first of three ships named the Defiant, right? You had this one, then you had the first USS Defiant, the NX, the prototype,
Hmm. Yeah.
right here over my
Yeah.
shoulder. And then that's destroyed pretty quickly in DS9. And then they renamed the USS Sail Paul, I think is what it is. Something I can't remember the name of the original name of the ship. They renamed that the Defiant. So technically there are three Defiants. This one's the first one, but I don't remember it actually showing up in TOS.
Yeah. I agree. So when they're scanning the Defiance ship, the Defiant systems, they are seeing that there's some life forms aboard. I think it was something like 13 non-human life forms aboard that
Yeah.
ship, including, and I think this was a really cool foreshadowing, including one reptilian. And so, so when we say like this two-parter of Enterprise like broke out all the stops, yeah, it broke out all the stops. I think really
Right.
cool. Yeah. And they end up beaming on, not beaming on, they end up getting on to the Defiant to check it out and to see what its capabilities are. Um, with at least an Archer's intent to bring it back, because he wants to bring back the Defiant.
And you were right. They do. They beam into a corridor on the Defiant. But they've found pretty quickly that the Tholians have already been in there gutting stuff, right?
Yeah.
And they're start so kind of like we talked about, right? The Tholians found this ship in the future, lured it into their, alternate universe, mirror universe from the mirror universe perspective, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And it's in the future. They lure that ship in, and then the crew's dead, and they're able to start salvaging and taking stuff off that ship to use to help them fight.
That's right. And Captain Forrest just wants, that he wants the team to salvage what they can, but to destroy the ship, like as he thinks that region of space is too dangerous. But Archer does not want to destroy it. He wants to take the ship back for themselves, bring it back to the conflict, bring it back to the war.
Which in this case, so of the decisions that Archer's made, this is actually a
Hmm.
pretty smart one if you're thinking about it, right? You're talking about a futuristic ship with enhanced technology that could help them or help him, I guess, do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
So this is a smart decision from with the lens of this is a mirror universe, and he's got, his own ulterior motives that he's planning on carrying out.
Yeah, yeah, totally. As they're going through the ship, as they approach the bridge, you see all the dead Starfleet officers. Um, yeah, I wonder. I'm just thought of another idea. Like, it'd be cool to see a version of an episode from the Prime universe's perspective of what happened to the Defiant. Right? You see the Defiant get trapped in this lore from the Tholians, and you see the Prime Universe version of Starfleet trying to investigate like what happened there.
Yeah, that would be interesting. It's also I also remember too on the uniforms they put on to make themselves look like the futuristic versions. The
Yeah.
symbols on their uniform are not the same symbols that we're used to seeing in TOS. They're different looking.
Oh, they were, aren't they?
They're not the normal Delta shield. They were
In
different looking.
when TOS didn't each ship have its own symbol? It was specific by ship. So if you were on like the Yorkshire, your emblem on your uniform would be different, I think.
Was it?
This is a good question. I think so.
All right. Those of you listening or watching, let us know. Because I honestly, off the top of my head, I can't think of it. I can't think of what the right answer is. So you could very well be right.
We're gonna go back and watch some toss after this, and that'll be fun to
Yeah.
see. Yeah,
Well, okay. Really quickly, without going into a sidebar here.
yeah.
So we're wrapping up this part of our spotlight series on the Mirror Universe, right? And we've done other one-offs like the Gamesters of Triskelion, and we did the City on the Edge of Forever. So we've done a few TOS spotlight deep dives, right?
Mhm.
On the show. I really, at some point, I really, really, really want to do Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. Another TOS episode.
Mhm.
Amazing, amazing episode. It's so good. It's still relevant today. Uh, it might be my favorite episode from TOS, which people are like, oh my gosh, over the City on the Edge of Forever and the Trouble with Tribbles and all these other things. Yeah, it's so good. So at some point, Chris, down the road, I would love to do a deep dive on Let That Be Your Last Battlefield, because I could see us getting into some really good philosophical discussions about that because of how relevant it was back in when it was made, how relevant it still is today, and the idea of carrying on uh prejudice prejudices, that
Mhm.
said that right, that are pretty much handed down generation to generation, right? And getting to the point where it's like, well, what was really all of this really worth it, and all the other things. So again, I'm going to stop right there because I don't want this to go into a rabbit trail, but I really at some point want to do that episode, because I'm
Yeah.
thinking we're talking about TOS, and that's on my bucket list, I guess you could say, of podcast episodes to do, is a real deep dive on that episode.
Well, let's do it. That'd be great to do.
Yeah,
Be
be
most
fun.
excellent.
So at some
Yeah.
point down the road, guys, we will definitely do that. We'll jump back and do more TOS episodes. I don't know, Chris. We've done a lot of obviously deep dives on various Trek episodes and other things. I feel like TOS has been so far. TOS has been one of my favorite things to do deep dives on. I just think the
Yeah.
writing in there lends itself to the deep dives that we do. So that's really really exciting. We'll do that at some point. We'll get back into TOS and do some more of those down in the future. We also can't forget though the TNG episode, the measure of a man, which is also a fantastic and a really good future deep dive.
We have not done a deep dive on that yet,
No,
right? Yeah.
but we have to, because that's a great episode as well.
Yeah. Toss has some like amazing episodes, like the Doomsday Machine, Balance of Terror, Let That
Yeah,
Be Your Last Battlefield,
City on the Edge of Forever,
City on the
which was
Edge of Forever.
fantastic.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Love
If
that
you
one.
have not watched or listened to our deep dive on the Gamesters of Triskelion, I promise you it's really great.
Yeah.
And I thought, Chris, we got into some really good deep dive discussions about an episode that's a bit obscure, A lot of people don't. I mean, it's not one that people will go back and go, "Oh, hey, I'm gonna go watch that episode." But there was some really good, hearty content in that episode that we really discussed heavily.
Agree. Agree. Yeah. So please, if you haven't seen it, or listened to it, go back and listen to that one.
Yeah,
That was
it's
great.
really it's great. Yeah. Anyways, I'm sorry I didn't mean to derail the
No, it was
conversation
good.
here about In a Mirror Darkly, but it got me thinking about Toss, and I'm like, yeah, we'll have to jump back into Toss at some point in the near future and do a deep dive of something out of that because I've really enjoyed the Toss ones quite a bit.
Mhm. Yeah, those lend themselves to there's a lot of layers in Toss on those individual episodes is when you think
Yeah,
about what's the things that are happening when those episodes aired, um quite a bit of layers in undercurrent there.
yeah,
So I do love them. Yeah.
yeah. And if you go back and you watch some of these obscure episodes, like Gamesters of Triskelion, which really was a result of me being on a work trip and randomly watching that episode and going, "Oh my gosh, this is actually there's some good content in here to talk about." So that's really how that came about. Um, there's some other quote unquote obscure episodes of the original series that I actually think are worthwhile to really dive into and peel back those layers that you mentioned.
Hmm. Totally. Totally.
Anyway,
Meanwhile,
so all right.
no, no, all
Yeah,
good.
we'll get back to
Good.
the lecture at hand here, I guess, but I didn't mean to
Lecture.
derail
Yeah.
everything.
It was all good. Meanwhile, in the alternate universe, we've got the assault team. We've got Archer. I guess they're an assault team. The away team,
Yeah.
whatever. Art,
Yeah, assault team. I think in
yeah,
the Mirror Universe, assault team actually kind of fits.
yeah, yeah. They are on the Defiant, and we must go back and remember that we've got a prisoner Tholian that's on the Enterprise, and that particular Tholian not beams, or communicates a distress signal, and that like sends a signal to some other Tholian ships. Um, Phlox is eventually able to get him to stop that signal. I think they freeze him to
Yeah,
death until
literally.
he,
Yeah.
yeah, until he pretty much shatters. But
Yeah.
what that sets into place is now we got the Tholian reinforcements coming, and it's just a matter of time before the Tholians are gonna like attack the Enterprise and attack the Defiant too. And so that sets into play essentially the Enterprise trying to fight its way out and survive. And you see the creation of the Tholian web, like,
Yeah.
and that happened like
I
right
love
before their
that.
eyes. Yeah.
I love that because that is such a great callback to TOS's episode, The Tholian Web.
Yeah, it is. And it traps the Enterprise. They try and blast their way out, but the web like absorbs all of the energy. So they're effectively trapped. And all they can do is um it, well, after they start losing the battle against the Tholians, like Captain Forrest says, all right, everyone abandon ship. And you see an aspect of Captain Forrest there, like because he stays behind. And I think Hoshi says, what are you going to do? And he says, well, I'm going to buy you guys as much time as possible. And I thought, wow, that was an act of um, service, act of saving the other crew members. So, not all Terrans are like so bad. There's some good in Captain Forrest right there at the
Yeah, I
end.
was gonna say,
Good
I was
bit.
like, that is a character trait that is not common in the Mirror Universe, right? Where you have a captain who's gonna go down with the ship to save his crew. Usually be the other
Yeah.
way around. He's like they'd sacrifice somebody of their crew to do it. Captain gets off, and he's got that's you're right there. So to me, Chris, this would be one of those character traits that transcends parallel universes, mirror universes, and all that stuff. And it's a core trait of Forrest,
Yeah.
in this case, Captain Forrest, who is very different in the mirror universe. But even though he's very different, it seems that this carries over to the mirror universe with him.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're able to get, so meanwhile, Forrest is there. Enterprise actually explodes. Escape pods go out. Some of the escape pods make it. Some of them get destroyed. But on the bridge of the USS Defiant, they're witnessing it. Now they're like understanding. Oh, well, we got to try and get the Defiant to work, to bring power back online, get the Defiant started. They are able to get it started, and they're able to think get out of dry dock, and they see the other ships and the escape pods, and they realize, hey, those are ours, and so they reunite with those escape pod ships to get some of the other crew members back onto the Defiant.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the Tholian webs do construct another web and keep the Defiant from escaping.
Ah, yes, they
And
do.
that's effectively what ends part one of In a Mirror Darkly.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So part two kind of opens where with them restoring the weapons to the Defiant. Um, and then I believe they're able to blast their way out, right? Be able to get out of
Yeah.
the Tholian kind of capture right there and move their way from there.
Yeah, I think they fired a torpedo.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't think they have warp power yet. I think they're still going along on impulse power.
Yeah.
Um, and Archer, of course, is demanding of Tucker that they restore the ship's like warp drive. But it's so hard because Tucker's like, "Hey, I've just compared to the Enterprise. Now I'm on the Defiant. Compared to that, I know nothing. Like know nothing about these ships, and it's gonna take me like a whole long time to figure it out." And Archer says something like, "Oh, well, you got like 6 hours or 18 hours. This ridiculous amount of time to figure it out."
Yeah. Imagine somebody in 1924 going 100 years in the future and trying to figure out how to use a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
I Good
Yeah.
luck. Yeah, trying to find. Yeah, I need you to go onto this smartphone and figure out how to download an app that can do X, Y, and Z. And they're gonna be like, I don't even know what you just said. Do you speak English from
Yeah.
that? Like, what are those words you speak of, right? But that's the difference, right? It's literally Greek to Tucker, even though he's an engineer, this stuff is vastly advanced technically because it doesn't look more advanced because it looks 1960s, but it is 100 years in the future. So to ask him to do this, that's asking a lot, even for Tucker.
Yeah. Yeah. It sure is. Um, and Tucker, in particularly in Act Two, he kind of you see him go more crazy and more crazy. Sporadically throughout
Yeah.
this episode, you get this his imagined version of himself mocking himself. Like, hey, they don't really believe you, they don't trust you, they don't have faith in you, you're really not gonna get your command like you want. So I like that you see like that dimension of Archer. Um, and that's good.
Yeah, for sure. And you do also seen to Paul pledging her allegiance to Archer because Boris is gone. He's in command. So, really uh she knows, right? She's smart. She knows that the only real reason that he's kept her alive is at this point is to help run the Defiant.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
And Archer's very paranoid, right? He's very paranoid and he even says like if I hear even the slightest rumor that you're doing something behind my back, he's willing to have her killed or kill her
Mhm.
himself.
Yep. He's seething like underneath. No, not so he's visibly seething. I would say that in the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Hoshi continues her, I would say her manipulation of Archer during this too, right? You see them, she goes into his quarters, captain's quarters, and we get to see Archer in the green tunic, the like you said, the wraparound captain's
Yeah, the
tunic
rap. Yep.
he's got. Yeah. And it's it's interesting. They start exploring what their counterparts were in the Prime universe. Archer pulls up Hoshi and says, "Oh well, she was a communications officer for the Enterprise, and she accomplished this and accomplished that." And is well known, and I think also uh, maybe authored a particular communication language. It was something like that. And Hoshi makes a remark like, "Oh, well, at least she accomplished something in that universe."
Well, does he mention is it the part where he mentions about her creating the first universal translator maybe or something like that? I can't
Or
remember.
something like that.
Something
Yeah,
along those lines. Yeah, she does something significant. Yeah.
yeah. And she pulls up Archer's history, and in the Prime universe, Archer is one of the one of the most celebrated and renowned explorers ever,
Yep.
and the first captain of the Warp 5 like starship,
Yeah.
and is a legend essentially. And this mirror universe version of Archer, he hates it, right? He's like so bothered. He doesn't want to hear it. He doesn't want any of that. Doesn't want any of that. He's like, oh, and that's cool. You get to see that insight into his psyche because he's
Yeah.
so bothered. He's so paranoid about not being recognized or being left behind. So I like that a lot. That they
Yeah.
got that. Yeah. Um, then I want to talk about the reptile and the Gorn a bit, right? Because as they're trying to get this ship to capabilities, you've got this Gorn coming and kind of sabotaging parts of the ship, and then sabotaging the people and dispatching the people.
All I can say, Chris, is Gorn happens. So
Gorn happens. Yeah. And I mean, you find out it's a Gorn later. You kind of have these shots and these sequences where you don't know what's attacking the crew, but something's attacking the crew. And you realize it's a Gorn later. And you have Archer like communicating with the Gorn, like from the bridge, and saying, "Hey, stop this." And you've got the Gorn the Gorn communicating back. And I really like that the Gorn kind of looked similar to the Gorn in Toss. I don't know how you
yeah.
felt about that, but when I
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
saw that, I was like, yeah, that Gorn kind of looks similar, and I thought it was great. It was
Well, they
it was
had to.
perfect.
They
Yeah.
had to, right? I mean, this era, like you can't make them look like the Strange New Worlds version of the Gorn.
Hmm.
You had to. I mean, not that they were going to, because this was way before Strange New Worlds, but you know what I mean? Like they had to make it recognizable in order to be believable, I think, for Star Trek fans.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the Gorn. I love that Archer went down himself to battle the to fight the Gorn and do that.
Yeah.
And um
That's a massive callback to the arena from Star Trek TOS,
yeah.
right? So a massive homage to that. I mean, a lot of TOS homage in this, which I think is great. And I think because the show is concluding and they were wrapping the series up, that it gave them an opportunity to kind of take some risks and do some things in this that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise.
You're right. Like you said before, they went all out on this one.
They really did, and we cannot forget of all this stuff in part two of the episode, Chris. We cannot forget that the Gorn is the other green meat. We cannot forget that, okay? We cannot forget the Gorn is the other green meat. You can even eat it right out of the can. It's
Out of the
just,
can?
it's a little
Yeah.
it's a little chewy,
Yeah.
but I mean, Gorn happens.
Gorn happens. Yeah.
Maybe I should hashtag this video with Gorn happens when it
Hmm.
goes up on YouTube. People be like, what
Hmm.
the hell does that mean? I don't know. I don't know what it means.
They should like do they make like um collectible statues of Gorns? Like 1/6 figure size Gorns?
Oh, they're
Like,
going to, yes.
yeah?
XO6 is going to be making a Gorn, and it looks just like the one from TOS with the same outfit and everything. It's going to be epic. It
Oh,
looks so good.
perfect.
It's been teased, but they have not released it for pre-order. But yes, they are making a Gorn. So that's something you
Oh,
got to have on
yeah.
your shelf,
It's
Chris.
gonna have that. Because you have that iconic like battle between Kirk and the Gorn, right? They're like they're really close up and they're fighting, could have both of those uh Exo 6 statues together. That'd be perfect, man.
That would be fantastic.
Hmm.
I concur, Doctor.
Yeah, yeah. Archer fortunately is able to dispatch the Gorn. You know, they're fighting. The Gorn kills one of the crewmen and is about to kill Archer. And fortunately, Archer has his communicator and says, "Hey, like increase the gravity on whatever section that was," and they're able to increase the gravity, make the gravity really, really, really dense for that Gorn, and Gorn's pushed down, and then Archer turns to one of the other crewmen and says, "Give me your weapon," and then destroys the poor Gorn.
Yeah. Yeah, a
Gorn is
little
dead.
bit different than the stick and gunpowder and rock that Kirk dispatched the Gorn. But I mean,
Mhm.
it's it's almost okay. Tell me what you think about this. So it's a bit of an homage to Toss, right? That they're doing this
Mhm.
whole Gorn and the the Defiant and this TOS uniforms and things like that. But it's a little bit of a satire too, I
Hmm.
think, right? Because you're in a mirror universe, you have mirror characters, and you have a very recognizable uh villain from the original series in Trek.
Yeah.
But I think there's a little bit of a satire element to this, which I really like.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think it is. So after the Gorn is out of the way, they're able to proceed more at warp and able to go at warp to they're trying to get to the front of the lines where the battle is.
Yeah.
Actually, and they are able to get to the front lines. Um, and on the way to the front lines, you get this interesting discussion with Phlox and T'Pol. So they're at lunch or dinner or whatever, and
I
T'Pol,
like this. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. T'Pol, remarks to Phlox like, "Hey, I see you've been um reading from the databanks a lot lately." And Phlox says, "Yeah, well, I like reading all of their literature, um, and it's really interesting uh, to read about all of the different authors and how they're different." And then he comments on Shakespeare and he goes, "But Shakespeare, is pretty much like Shakespeare's bloody, and no matter what universe you're in." So I like that from Phlox. I like that is it was cool that they brought up Shakespeare specifically because in Toss, they based some of the episodes on the Shakespearean plays. So
Yes.
so he says it specifically here. So that was great.
Another homage to Toss.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I did find it interesting, Chris. I don't know what you thought of this during their conversation where he says, he's been researching all this classical literature and
Yeah.
everything. And he says, with the exception of Shakespeare, he doesn't like any of the other stories. He finds the characters weak and compassionate, and he doesn't have time for that. So he liked Shakespeare, but other than Shakespeare, he didn't like any of the rest of the writers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I found that
Yeah.
fascinating because Phlox is a I find Phlox in the Prime universe. He's a bit of a Renaissance man, right? He likes to dabble in things. He likes to learn a
Mhm.
lot about other cultures and species, and he likes to try different kinds of food and all sorts of stuff. And he likes doing that.
Yeah.
This Phlox kind of does that, but just doesn't think too much of anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. To Paul remarks to Phlox and says, "Hey, in this other universe, Vulcans um and all the other species are equal to humans." And so she remarks that to him, and that makes him feel makes them both feel like, oh, maybe there's hope in this other prime universe, right? They there's a better universe out there. The Terrans are better. The humans are better. This United Federation of Planets is a better deal right there. So that was um, kind of cool to see to Paul kind of explore that with Phlox, I thought.
Yep, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yep. But on their way to the front lines of the conflict, you know, Archer announces himself to another admiral. And I think he's an admiral, but it was someone with the ISS Avenger that they're fighting. And
Yeah,
they
Admiral
all
Black.
Admiral Black,
Yep.
and they all ask, "Well, where's Captain Forrest?" And
Yep.
I like how Archer responds, he's not available right now, or he's not here right now. He said that like a couple times. So that was,
Yeah.
but he goes,
Yeah, that
yeah,
was
yeah,
sneaky funny for sure.
yeah, I like that. So they're at the front lines, and the Avengers having difficulty, in the battle with the rebellion, but with the Defiant's able to come in and really turn the battle around like so quickly. No one's a match for the Defiant. Of course they're not, because all the other ships are 100 years behind. So the Defiant quickly dispatches all of the ships and pretty much wins that battle single-handedly from there. But after that, Admiral Black is congratulating Archer and saying, "Oh, the Terran Empire owes you a great debt, and you did a good job. And we'll see to it. You've done such a good job. Like we'll see to it that someday you're going to get your own command." And you see that other version of Archer, like around Archer, saying, "See, I told you they're never going to get you a command." Um, and our Archer challenges, well, with respect, like you can do like battlefield promotions like right now, like why won't you do that? um and Admiral Black you know gives some non-committal answer, and then so, well, you're gonna need a ship. And and then Archer's like, well, this is my ship, like the Defiant. And Admiral Black's, no, 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 no. And then after that, you get to see some cool stuff, because Archer soon dispatches the Admiral real quick with the phaser, like and you see Mayweather do like I don't know if you notice this, like Mayweather does this nice kick, like high kick to one of the
Yeah.
guards, dispatches that guard. That was cool. And
With Archer, or not Archer, with Mayweather's haircut, and I think he has an earring in this. Does he not
yeah.
remind? He's like the Star Trek version of Mr. T. He's I
Oh
pity the fool.
yeah.
I just a little
Yeah.
bit like the way they make him carry the character, and the way they kind of have him set up. It's like, oh, okay, so he's like Archer's Mr. T, and he pities the fool who messes with Archer, and I
Yeah.
pity the fool who messes with Archer in the Mirror Universe, because this Mirror Universe Archer is no joke. He will. I mean, he dispatches the captain of his ship, who he was under command of. He dispatches an admiral. Like, this guy is no joke. He will do whatever he needs to do to get what he wants. And very, very opposite, obviously, of the Archer we know from the Prime universe.
Yep. He wants to be the emperor now of the entire Terran
Yeah,
Empire, essentially.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So now
Somebody else has that position in mind, but we'll get to that at the end.
yeah, we will get to that at the end. So, but now the Avenger, ISS Avenger, and USS Defiant. I guess it's still the USS Defiant. Now they're traveling back, going back to Earth, so that Archer can be, Archer wants to be Emperor, so he's looking forward to doing that. But along the way, um, essentially, all of the other non-humans band together to try and stop Archer, because they realize like Archer's just gonna destroy all of the non-humans. So, um, sorry, we didn't talk too much about Saval, but Saval's in this episode
Yeah,
like as well. So it's pretty cool because he was on the
yeah.
yeah,
Rest in peace, Gary Graham.
yeah, but he was on the Avenger.
Yep.
Um, but all of the non-humans, are trying to stop Archer, and they ultimately like fail. So Archer is able to stop that. It's not quite a mutiny, but quite, stop that attack and destroy the Avenger with T'Pol like in the captain's chair for there, and takes care of them, and then they're done.
Yeah, because prior to destroying the Avenger, right? DePaul is caught downloading the Defiance schematics from the science station,
Yeah,
right? And she's caught, and he wants to be put in contact with Admiral Gardner. He tells the Makos to escort her to the transporter room. She's no longer needed. And then yeah, that just kind of spirals out of control. and down the path of getting rid of them.
Yeah, it does. We get the cool fight sequence between Hoshi and T'Pol.
Yeah.
So I thought that was great. I think Hoshi ends up cutting T'Pol in the face. T'Pol actually wins, like knocks Hoshi out. But then someone else shoots T'Pol in the back, stuns her in the back. So stops T'Pol there. Yeah. So Archer's feeling kind of victorious now, right?
Yeah.
Going to Earth. He's gone to the front lines, won the battle there. He stopped all of the non-humans on the Avengers from trying to stop him. So he's feeling pretty good. Then you see the um a moment where Hoshi and Archer like in bed, and then then you kind of see them celebrating afterwards. Hoshi gives him a sip of like what I think is either wine or champagne, and he drinks it. He's just feeling so good, and you realized like later he's been poisoned. And you see,
Dun
you,
dun
dun dun
dun.
dun. You see Mayweather come in, Hoshi come right up to Mayweather, give him a kiss. This is while Archer's dying, and he looks up and he's
Yeah.
kind of seeing that, and then he dies and he collapses.
Yep.
That was a twist for me when I first saw these episodes.
Yeah. I loved too toward, at the very end of the episode where the Defiance around Earth, right? Hoshi enters the bridge. She's got Mayweather there and Mako, and she says, get Admiral Gardner on. He comes in the view screen and she introduces herself as Empress Sato
Yeah,
and threatens that the Admiral that the Defiant will attack Earth if Starfleet does not immediately surrender, that she is Empress Sato and he must now await her commands. And this is what I love about this character, right? And they take this character from the Prime universe, which is an officer who's very insecure, very, especially in the beginning of the show, right? If you remember, Sato's very insecure. She's not very confident in her skills and her abilities to um decipher things and to translate things and so forth. Obviously, as the show goes on, the character gains confidence and she becomes a more, confident person, a more
mm-hmm.
integral officer besides just doing what she does on the bridge. But they really ratchet her character up in the Mirror Universe, and I really like the arc that they gave her character in these Mirror episodes.
Me too. It wasn't something you would have expected. Like, I don't know. I thought maybe it would have been someone like T'Pol to have more of the nefarious role in the Mirror Universe. Because she's a sweet character in
Yeah,
the Prime
very much
Universe,
so.
right? So,
Yep.
so I didn't expect it, but it does make a lot of sense, right? Because she's so sweet in the Prime Universe, they could bring her here and switch to the opposite of that.
And I
Someone,
think that's something that we've learned. So if we kind of take a look back really quickly, Chris, here as we're winding down this episode, uh, across the Mirror Universe that we've seen in Legacy Trek, which for those of you listening or watching, a lot of people will consider Legacy Trek the original series to Enterprise, and then everything in between. So from the original series in the very first Mirror Universe episode, which was pretty ahead of its time, I think, back then, to this last Mirror Universe episode in Enterprise, In a Mirror Darkly Part 1 and 2, I think that one of the things that we can probably hang our hat on is in the Mirror Universe, expect the unexpected, right? The characters that you would expect to be a certain way, or the ones you would expect to be the top bad guys, the top villains, are usually not,
mm-hmm.
right? Whether it's been Empress Hoshi or a really nice Liquidator Brunt,
Yeah.
or a Major Kira who is the intendant and she's ruthless, or you have a Klingon in Worf who in the Prime universe is this great warrior, and in the Mirror universe, he's kind of a dunderhead and is
Like a
really easy
buffoon.
to.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a buffoon. You
Yeah.
mentioned that actually in one of our episodes, how much of a buffoon he is, and that really fits the bill for how he is. So, I kind of want to look back at this run we've had of all these Mirror episodes because they've been so much fun, and kind of get some final thoughts from you on what you've maybe not learned, but just kind of what your overall thoughts are of the Mirror universe in Legacy Trek.
I so I think talk about the title In a Mirror Darkly. Uh, I loved the title on this two-parter. Um, I think it's a perfect title. Don't know who came up with the name, but In a Mirror Darkly is just that title stays with me, um, definitely. So my my final thoughts on the Mirror Universe and the characters, it's like definitely you explore the potential extremes for these characters, like what could potentially um, be an extreme with a particular character's personality. Like let's say their personality was really at the core, the personality is the same, whether in the Prime universe or the Mirror universe. But if you take that core personality and you subject them to um, different ideologies, different experiences, what manifests like out of those. So like Major Kira, you see like, yeah, Kira's a strong personality and a strong character no matter which universe like she's in, right? So um like Prime universe, like she has her strong faith and she's got these really strong convictions on um, battling the Cardassians, and in the alternate universe, very very strong in that she's completely ruthless, like you say, like no faith, like almost nihilistic in that sense. Um, so I think that's kind of my thoughts in there is like, if that makes sense, is like you have a core personality and you're exploring what kind of extremes could happen with a particular personality. O'Brien is one. I know we're talking about a few DS9 characters, but O'Brien is one where he was definitely like the same like personality I felt overall in both universes, right? But
Yeah.
Smiley just didn't have those same opportunities that the Prime universe of O'Brien had.
Yeah, I think we talked about that before, right? I think O'Brien was maybe the closest, or Smiley was the closest version,
Yeah.
or closest to the Prime version of himself.
Yep.
Maybe with just less confidence, and I mean, given the situation he was in, he was beat down. He was a Terran, right? So he's looked at as inferior to those that weren't part of the Klingon Cardassian alliance, or
Yeah.
the alliance as they call it. So yeah, I think you make a good point there.
And
I
Kirk,
think
if I could talk about
yeah,
Kirk for a
yeah,
moment,
yeah.
like, yeah, and Kirk, I felt like the the differences between the Prime and the Mirror Universe of Kirk. Kirk's kind of that core personality I felt was similar because he was so ambitious in the Prime universe, ambitious as well in the Mirror universe. But you learn that the Kirk of the Mirror universe was like he would dispatch like all of his superior officers by like killing them because he wanted the power. He wanted to keep advancing. So
Yeah.
that was there. I thought that was staying true uh, to kind of one of Kirk's uh, very true characteristics of like such like strong ambition for anything.
And I would argue too that Archer in this two-part episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Prime Universe Archer is ambitious too.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Yeah.
ambitious just like his mirror counterpart is, but he's ambitious in the sense of doing things to explore, not doing things to take over and take command and rule as an emperor. You know what I mean? Like the ambitions the goals of Archer's ambition were vastly different in between Prime Universe and Mirror Universe Archer. But I think that core identity there, like that you had mentioned, is the same. They're both very ambitious. Archer's just willing to go to super extremes for the wrong causes versus Archer's ambition is to get out and explore and push the limits and everything to get humanity out to where he thinks it should be.
Yes, yes. So in the Prime universe of Archer, because I think for me, this is how I am interpreting Earth Archer in both universes. Prime Archer's kind of core personality to me is about proving oneself like either as an individual or proving oneself as like as a race, like humanity. So in the Prime
Yeah.
version of Archer, Archer still he's frustrated with Vulcans. He is frustrated because he feels like humanity's ready to go out. We've done all this stuff. We're ready to prove ourselves on this broader stage, this broader scale, be explorers. And he's frustrated because he feels, man, why Saval, why are you holding us back? Vulcan's like, why are you holding us back? We're ready to go prove ourselves. And in the mirror universe, our Terrans are obviously I guess they're very powerful in the mirror
Yeah, they're the
universe, but
dominant species,
they're
right?
dominant, right? But Archer's like here he's trying to prove himself as an individual. Like, hey, why am I being I feel like I'm being like held back and no one wants me to advance. And so that manifests itself in a very, very negative way. Makes him he's crazy essentially
Yeah.
in there. So it's kind of the extreme. So that's for Archer and me, like those contrasts. I think you brought like a great point up with Archer. And so that was fascinating to explore in these.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I wasn't thinking about the same quite the same way. This
Mhm,
idea of proving, right? Proving
mhm.
yourself, you know, in Prime Archer's timeline, he's trying to prove humanity's ready. With Prime Archer, you mentioned that he's trying to prove to the Vulcans that humanity's ready, right?
Yeah.
And in the Mirror Universe, he's trying to prove that he should be in these positions and he's ready. So that's something else in addition to the ambition, that core quality, that core competency, that core whatever you want to call it of Archer is this idea of proving self-worth and proving that you belong and everything else. And then in the mirror universe, it's kind of the same way. The tie-in here is the Vulcans, right? In
Yeah.
both Prime and Mirror universe, he didn't like Vulcans all that much. He
Yeah.
doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Because of the issues that they've had with them.
Yep. Yep. Agree. So I thought that was it was a good common tie-in for both versions of Archer. And interesting that Archer didn't necessarily maybe that's comes off too strong, but in the mirror universe, Archer did not like the Vulcans. That was pretty obvious. But maybe subconsciously in the Prime universe, or maybe not so subconsciously, but Archer resented the Vulcans in the Prime universe
Yeah.
because like, yeah, why are you holding us back?
Yeah. Well,
So
because so in
yeah,
the Prime universe, Vulcans look down on humans as inferior and not ready. In
yeah,
the mirror universe, humans are doing the same thing to them,
yeah,
right? So it really does parallel, but with just some opposite stuff there. So to me, I think that, yeah, it makes sense. It really does. Um, I think I think over these episodes we've discussed and we've talked about some of the things we've learned through watching these mirror episodes. Like they're fun, they're whimsical to a certain extent. Sometimes they're dark, obviously. I've actually seen several comments from some of our listeners and viewers that said they don't really like the mirror universe episode that much. A lot of times they skip over it, but they actually
oh,
watched them
interesting,
because we were doing
yeah,
these reviews. So I think that's
yeah,
awesome that they're
that is
doing
awesome.
that.
Yeah, thank you for doing that, all the listeners that did that. But again, when I think about the Enterprise episodes of Mirror Universe, and I'm like you. I really love these ones, and they were really all out.
Yes.
You know, when I'm thinking of all the Mirror Universe episodes from classic Trek, having a hard time, but maybe this is not our last episode on the Mirror Universes. Maybe we have another episode where we discuss like our rankings of which ones are favorites from the Mirror Universe episodes, because that's
Well, I
something I've been thinking about.
yeah, well, you made a comment on one of the Mirror Universe episodes that we did where you felt like, yeah, this is my least favorite. I think it was
Mhm.
Resurrection, right?
Yeah,
With Belial, and how
yeah,
like, yeah, it was okay, but it didn't further the Mirror Universe by doing it because it was all in the Prime Universe. It was just Mirror Belial coming over. So I think that was great that you said that because I think this Mirror Universe two-parter in A Mirror Darkly, part 1 and 2 from Enterprise, I think this absolutely furthered the Mirror
Mhm.
Universe
Agree.
quite a bit, honestly.
Yeah, because the next time we see the Mirror Universe, I think, is in Discovery, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, you know, that's interesting. Discovery is the let me think through this. Discovery is the next Star Trek series after Enterprise.
Correct.
Yeah. And they go pretty quickly into the
At least the
yeah.
next like live action full on show, yes.
Yeah. And they actually go pretty quickly in the Mirror Universe then.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
Yep. They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you get a mirror uh Georgia, however you say her name. I can never remember how to say her
Yeah.
name. Where she's like an empress or queen or something like that. It's been a while since I've watched it, but
That's right.
um and I think Discovery does a pretty good job with the mirror universe as well. I think those episodes add a lot to the mirror universe
Hmm.
uh aspect of Star Trek. But I do think that in A Mirror Darkly Part 1 and 2 added a lot. I thought they were fun. There were some really dark moments. It was a really twist on these characters that I'm sure the actors loved and was a awesome time enjoying it. In fact, I remember specifically at one of the Star Trek conventions I was at where Linda Park, who played Ensign Hoshi on
Hmm.
Enterprise, was on stage and she mentioned that one of her absolute favorite things from Enterprise was playing the mirror version of
Yeah.
Hoshi because it
I'll
was
bet.
so much fun being the Empress.
Yeah. I'll bet that was
So,
fun.
yeah, I bet it was. Just playing these alternate characters, I'm sure as an actor is a lot of fun to do, right? Playing these kind of villainous versions of yourself, an alternate version of yourself. And I mean, I could see the draw to that easily.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I think the Enterprise Mirror Universe episodes, um, Discovery should give credit to this, because without the Mirror Darkly episodes, I don't think Discovery would have had as much background, to draw from
It's possible.
for
Yeah.
doing that. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think so. So TOS set the stage. How cool would it have been to have seen the Next Generation had to have done at least one Mirror Universe episode? I know we had like some alternate universe stuff,
mm,
but it wasn't the same, right? Because it wasn't
yeah,
you didn't have the Terran Empire and stuff like that. But how cool would it have been to see alternate versions of the TNG characters in like a Mirror Universe type setting?
that would have been cool. I think that there are some comics, TNG
There are,
comics, that
yes,
explore that. Yeah.
there are, yes, absolutely.
So, okay, that'll be a future one for us to do. Go back and look at those TNG Mirror Universe comics. We can come back and talk about that. That'll be fun to do.
Those would be fun because you have a Captain Picard with a sleeveless uniform and like there's all
Oh,
sorts
yeah.
of really, yeah, some really good. He's like really buff and stuff, and it's pretty cool. But yeah, I that would have been cool to see the TNG one. So TOS establishes the mirror universe, which is way ahead of its time. DS9 really grows the mirror
Hmm.
universe and adds a lot to it. I think that a lot of the DS9 episodes are really fantastic. I know that's probably because I'm biased. And then you get they didn't do anything in Voyager, which made sense because they're in the Delta Quadrant. And then you get uh In a Mirror Darkly from Enterprise, which I thought is like you said is really incredible, really a great two-part episode that was a lot of fun. And then you get into Discovery. So I definitely agree with you. The Enterprise Mirror episodes really added a lot and really furthered the Mirror universe.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Again, cinematic, and then just brought it all out. Gorn,
Yep.
Tholians, yeah,
Don't
so
don't you
cool.
think they could have made this into like a mini movie
I do
almost, like the
feel like,
Intermere Darkly?
yeah, totally feel like it was a movie. Could have been a movie too. A movie,
Absolutely. I mean, they opened up with
yeah,
the clip from First Contact with the
yeah,
music too. So
yeah. Connecting it to First Contact, that was terrific.
that, yeah, that to me, the way they open this episode, this two-parter, with that scene of Zephram Cochrane and like the whole mirror universe completely changing because
Hmm.
of a completely different mindset and decision by the humans to shoot the Vulcans rather than to have first contact and be peaceful and all this stuff, I thought was absolutely brilliant. Because
Hmm.
really, in A Mirror Darkly, part one, that opening scene, that is what establishes the mirror universe. That's where
Hmm.
it breaks off and does its own thing. So in A Mirror Darkly is, if we look back and think about it, is really critical because it is the starting point. It establishes the entire mirror universe, which is what we've been talking about.
Yeah, agree.
So
They need to
it's awesome.
it is awesome. They need to do like theatrical showings of the of these in the Mirror Darkly two-parters. Be cool.
Imagine if they did In a Mirror Darkly the musical.
In a Mirror Darkly musical. That's cute. Yeah.
The musical. Oh my gosh, yes. As Archer's running around killing people and Hoshi's, sleeping her way to the top because she's manipulating the people who are in
Yeah,
charge as captains, and then eventually takes over as Empress. And yeah, it would be
that'd be
pretty fun.
cool.
Imagine Dr. Phlox doing a song involving the agony chamber.
Yeah. You know what that would be cool. That'd be funny. What I
It'd
also
be
really
really
liked,
funny.
yeah. What I really liked how long they spent on the Defiant, on the,
Yeah.
this on that Constitution class starship. That was so
I think they
cool.
had to because of the money they must have spent to make that set.
Oh
They
yeah, bet
gotta
they
get their
did.
money's worth out of it, right? But yeah, no, I agree for sure.
Yeah, and I know they put on all the uniforms, so you get Tucker in the red like engineering tunic uniform, and you've got Archer in his wraparound captain's uniform, and T'Pol in
Yeah.
the science skirt. So
Yeah.
I
Tucker
like
had to
that.
be careful because wearing that red, man, in that era was no bueno,
No bueno at all.
as our namesake would hint at.
Yeah, but they did spend a lot of money on
Yeah,
that.
they had to have. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like I said, I think they went all in on this episode. They're nearing the end of the show, right? They're finishing up their budget, whatever, however all that works, how they divvy up money for each episode. I don't know, but it was good. I'm glad we did this. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for recommending that we do these mirror universe episodes because I've really enjoy this. You watch one randomly here and there when you're watching through a
Mhm.
series, but to go through and actually watch just the Mirror Universe episodes throughout the different series really, I think, makes you appreciate them more. I think it makes it more fun, and you really just get to kind of see everything back to back and see kind of how everything plays out over the course of several different series. So it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it was. So if I say, um, I'm thinking of another idea is like we have a recap of the Mirror Universe episodes where we consider which ones are favorite, which ones are least, like our own personal rankings of the Mirror Universe episodes of the classic Trek ones. It'd be
Yeah,
fun to
that could be
do.
fun for sure. Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
we'll have to do that soon so we can as our wrap up to the Mirror Universe.
Hmm.
Be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think I have an idea what one might be your number one, but we'll save that for.
Yeah. I'm having a so this two-parter is like really strong, but I'm also having a,
I know
you
you
know,
love the original TOS one
hmm,
too, though.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be fun to talk about. But well, anyways, guys, thank you so much as always for tuning in and watching, listening all over the interwebs and the globe, Antarctica, maybe up on the ISS. If you are, send us a message from
Yeah.
space.
Yes,
I don't know
please.
if you're streaming up there because they do have internet up there. I don't know exactly how that works, but they have internet out on the ISS. Maybe they're watching the Random Redshirt podcast. We would literally be interstellar at that point, um, which would be pretty. We'll have to get
Yeah.
them some t-shirts if they are watching. Not that there are, but anyways, we're listening. But yeah, this has been awesome. We've had a
Yeah.
blast doing this. So I guess we'll do a wrap up of the Mirror Universe and rate our episodes. So be sure to stay tuned and keep an eye out for that episode because that'll be fun. That'd be a lot of fun to talk about and discuss that. We also very soon, at the time of this recording, are going to be sitting down and doing our Halloween prep episode to get you
Oh,
prepared for the end of this month here in October of 2024. And it'll be good, even if you just want to go watch some spooky, scary, thriller, sci-fi episodes and movies. This will be available all year round if you're in that kind of a mood. Maybe you get out of the post-Christmas time and you're done with all the wintry stuff and you want to watch something spooky, sci-fi, thriller, whatever, it'll be there. But this will be your prep for Halloween. We look forward to bringing that to you very, very soon, along with hopefully a ton of content from the 20th anniversary Battlestar Galactica convention in Chicago, coming up later at the end of this month in October 2024 at the time of this recording. So we look forward to that. I can't wait, dude. It'll be good to see you again. It'll be the first time
absolutely.
I've seen you
Great
since
to
we did
see
that
you.
Shuttle Pod Show live event.
Yeah. Yeah. That'll be most excellent, my friend.
Yes, for sure. So, anyways, thank you so much, everybody, as always, for watching and listening. Be sure to go on Facebook and Instagram, follow us there, head to YouTube, subscribe to us on there, subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform, whichever you prefer. And we look forward to many, many more episodes with you all. Take care, and we'll catch you next time right here on the Random Redshirt Podcast.